You know what pisses me off? When guys say they just want to keep things casual, but then act like your boyfriend for 3 straight months. Like, make up your mind, dude. Either you want casual or you want to text me good morning every day, and remember that I hate working closing shifts. You can't have it both ways. I'm Vanessa, I'm 25, and I work at one of those department stores where they make you stand for 8 hours straight while customers treat you like you're personally responsible for their bad life choices. It's not my dream job, but it pays the bills and works around my daughter Mia's schedule. She's 4. And before you start judging, yes, I know what you're thinking. Single mom on dating apps, what could go wrong, right? Here's the thing though. I wasn't looking for a dad for Mia when I met Landon in February. I was just looking for some adult conversation and maybe someone to make me feel like a woman instead of just mommy all the time. Sue me for wanting a life outside of goldfish crackers and Disney movies. Landon was 22, worked at some logistics company loading trucks, and his first message was literally, "Not looking for anything serious, just want to have fun." Cool, I thought. Perfect. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 adults enjoying each other's company when it's convenient. Except that's not what happened at all. Within 2 weeks, this guy was texting me constantly. Not just, "Hey, you up?" texts either. Actual conversations about his day, asking about mine, sending me funny memes he thought I'd like. When I mentioned being stressed about covering a coworker's shift, he remembered to ask how it went the next day. When I complained about my manager being a micromanaging nightmare, he'd check in to see if things got better. That's not casual behavior, okay? Casual is hitting someone up when you're bored or horny. This was attentive, like he actually cared about my well-being or something. And the physical stuff was really good too, which honestly surprised me. Most guys his age have no clue what they're doing, but Landon paid attention. He'd remember what I liked, took his time, made sure I was enjoying myself. We'd lie there afterward, talking about random stuff until way too late, and I'd have to drag myself out of bed for work the next morning. But here's where I had to be strategic, because nobody puts single mom in their dating profile unless they want to watch every match disappear. So when Landon asked what I did on weekends, I kept it vague. Hanging out with family mostly, catching up on errands. Not technically lying. Mia is family, and grocery shopping with a preschooler definitely counts as errands. When he'd want to meet up on random weeknights, sometimes I'd say I was tired or had other plans. Which was true. After 8 hours of retail hell, sometimes I just needed to collapse on the couch with Mia and watch Moana for the 15th time. But I could tell Landon liked that I wasn't always available. Guys get bored if you're too eager. By our 2nd month, I started noticing changes in how he acted around me. He began keeping snacks I mentioned liking at his apartment, those protein bars that help me get through double shifts, herbal tea for when I'm stressed. He'd text me good morning before work and ask how my day went afterward. He'd get this weird look when I mentioned other guys, even just customers or coworkers. These aren't friends with benefits moves. These are boyfriend moves. One night, I had this killer headache from dealing with particularly awful customers. This lady who wanted to return a clearly worn dress with makeup stains on it, throwing a complete tantrum when I said no. Instead of just suggesting we hook up as a distraction, Landon actually left his apartment, went to the store, and came back with ibuprofen and this fancy tea that's supposed to help with tension. He made it for me and everything. Didn't even expect sex afterward. Just wanted to take care of me because I wasn't feeling well. If that's not boyfriend behavior, I don't know what is. But every time I'd suggest doing more coupley things, dinner at an actual restaurant, seeing a movie, meeting each other's friends, he'd get this panicked look and change the subject, like he was fighting his own feelings or something. I could see what was happening. Landon was catching feelings hard but was too scared to admit it. Maybe he'd been hurt before. Maybe he just didn't have experience with serious relationships. Either way, part of him clearly wanted more, but he was stuck on this idea that staying casual would somehow protect him. So I started showing him what having a real girlfriend would be like. I'd cook dinner when I came over, Nothing fancy, just pasta with actual vegetables instead of his usual ramen and energy drinks. I'd suggest we watch his shows instead of always defaulting to what I wanted. I'd ask about his work problems and actually listen, give advice when his supervisor was being unreasonable about overtime. Basic girlfriend stuff, but I could tell he wasn't used to someone actually caring about his comfort and happiness. He'd get this surprised, grateful look whenever I'd do something thoughtful, like previous girls had just been taking from him without giving back. Which honestly made me want to take care of him even more. This sweet guy who deserved someone who appreciated all the little things he did, someone who'd show him what real partnership looked like. By month 3, we were basically a couple in everything but name. Texting all day, seeing each other multiple times a week, sharing meals, talking about our problems. The only thing missing was the official acknowledgement that this had become way more than casual. But there was one major thing I hadn't told him yet. And honestly, I was getting tired of hiding such a huge part of my life from someone I was clearly falling for. Because here's the reality. I am a package deal. I always have been, always will be. Mia is the most important person in my world, and any guy who wants to be with me seriously needs to at least be okay with that. Not immediately become her stepdad or anything crazy, but acknowledge that she exists and matters to me. I'd been putting off telling Landon about her because I wanted him to get to know me first, to see that I was worth taking a chance on before dropping the single mom thing on him. But 3 months in, it was getting ridiculous. I was constantly making excuses for why I couldn't hang out certain nights, why I had to leave early sometimes, why I couldn't be completely spontaneous with plans. Plus, Mia had started asking questions. Who keeps texting you? Why are you smiling at your phone? 4-year-olds notice everything, and I was running out of vague answers that didn't involve lying to her, so I started testing the waters, seeing how Landon reacted to kids in general. I'd mention cute things children did at the store, comment on families we'd see when we were out together. He never seemed hostile about it, just disinterested, like kids were something that existed in other people's lives, but weren't relevant to his own world, which I figured was normal for someone his age. Most 22-year-olds aren't exactly thinking about family planning, but it also made me nervous about how he'd react when he found out I already had one. The conversation finally happened on a Tuesday night in early May. Mia was supposed to be at her dad Brandon's place for their weekly overnight, but he'd called last minute with some work emergency that meant postponing the visit. I texted Landon to reschedule our plans, but he'd already picked up groceries for this stir-fry recipe he wanted to try. He seemed genuinely disappointed about canceling, which gave me hope. She usually goes to bed pretty early, I said when he called to discuss rescheduling. She could just hang out with us for a bit, then crash in her room like always. It doesn't have to ruin our whole evening. The silence on his end was deafening. She? He finally asked. And that's when I realized I'd never actually told him about Mia. Like never directly mentioned having a daughter. In my head, I'd been gradually working up to it, but apparently I'd been more vague than I thought. My daughter, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Mia, she's 4. More silence. Then, you have a kid? The way he said it, not angry exactly but definitely shocked, made my stomach drop. Yeah, I mentioned family stuff, having responsibilities. I thought you meant like your parents or something, he said quietly. Okay, so maybe I should have been more direct earlier. But we'd been seeing each other for 3 months. At what point do you stop tiptoeing around major life details and just start being honest about who you are? Her dad Brandon and I broke up when she was 2, I explained. We have a good co-parenting thing going, very drama-free. She's really easygoing, super well-behaved, you'd like her. But I could tell from his tone that he was already pulling away mentally. Vanessa, This is a lot to process. It doesn't have to change anything between us, I said quickly. She's just part of my life. If you want to keep seeing me, eventually you'd probably meet her, but there's no pressure or timeline or anything like that. Except even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Because if Landon and I were going to get serious, and after 3 months of daily contact and increasingly intimate connection, weren't we already serious? then yeah, he'd need to be okay with Mia's existence. You can't date a mom long-term while pretending her kid doesn't exist. That's not how real relationships work. I need some time to think about this, he said finally. Time to think about what? Whether my daughter was worth dealing with to keep seeing me? Whether he could handle dating someone with actual responsibilities instead of just a convenient hookup? Sure, I said, because what else could I say? Take all the time you need. But I was already starting to feel that familiar sinking feeling. The one that told me Landon was about to become another guy who decided I was too complicated for his simple life. The thinking about it phase lasted exactly 1 week, during which Landon barely texted me and didn't make any plans to see me. After 3 months of constant communication, suddenly radio silence. When he finally called the next Tuesday, I already knew what he was going to say. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he started, and I had to resist the urge to hang up right there. And I don't think I'm ready for something that serious, he said. Dating someone with a kid is a big responsibility, and I'm just not in a place where I can handle that right now. There it was. The exact conversation I'd been dreading since the moment I'd met him. I'm not asking you to be her father, I said. I'm asking you to acknowledge that she exists, and maybe, occasionally, be okay with her being in the same space as us. But it's more complicated than that, isn't it? He said. If we keep seeing each other, she's going to get attached. She's going to expect me to be around, to be part of her life. And what happens when I can't live up to that? Which was actually a fair point, except that he was making decisions for all of us, without ever giving any of us a chance to see how it might actually work. So you'd rather just give up without even trying? I asked. I'm being realistic about what I can handle, he said. And I don't think it's fair to any of us to pretend I'm ready for something I'm not. The thing that killed me was that I could tell he actually cared about me. This wasn't some asshole looking for an excuse to bail. He seemed genuinely conflicted about ending things, like he wished he could be the person I needed, but just couldn't figure out how. Which almost made it worse. If he'd been a jerk about it, I could have written him off as another immature guy not worth my time. But Landon was being decent about the whole thing, which made it harder to be completely angry. So that's it, I said. 3 months of whatever this was, and you're just done because the idea of meeting my daughter is too scary? It's not about being scared, he said, but we both knew that was bullshit. It's about being honest about what I want and what I'm capable of right now. And what he wanted, apparently, was someone with no complications. Someone available whenever he wanted them, with no responsibilities that might interfere with his convenience. I think we should stop seeing each other, he said quietly, before this gets more complicated than it already is. I hung up without saying goodbye, mostly because I was afraid I'd say something I'd regret, but honestly, I was more hurt than angry. I'd really thought Landon was different, that he was mature enough to handle dating an actual adult woman with an actual life. Instead, he turned out to be just like every other guy who wants all the benefits of a relationship without any of the real-world complications that come with dating someone who's not just floating through life with zero responsibilities. The worst part was realizing how much time and emotional energy I'd wasted trying to convince someone to want me. 3 months of thinking I was being patient and understanding, when really I was just setting myself up for disappointment by ignoring all the signs that he wasn't ready for what dating me would actually require. But you know what? His loss. I'm 25, I'm a good mom, I have my own place, and my own job. Plenty of guys would be lucky to be with someone like me. Landon just wasn't mature enough to recognize a good thing when he had it. The next few months were rough, not gonna lie. I kept going over our relationship in my head, looking for signs I'd missed or moments where I should have realized he wasn't as invested as I thought. But honestly, everything he'd done suggested someone who was genuinely interested in building something with me. The daily texts, remembering details about my work life, keeping my favorite snacks around, getting jealous when I mentioned other guys. Those aren't casual behaviors. Those are relationship behaviors. Things you do when someone matters to you. But apparently Landon was capable of doing all those things while still keeping one foot out the door, ready to run the second things required any real commitment or integration into my actual life. I tried dating other people, but it was hard to get excited about anyone new when I kept comparing them to the good parts of what Landon and I had together. The easy conversation, the chemistry, the way he used to look at me like I was the most interesting person in the room. Most guys on dating apps either disappeared the second they found out about Mia, or they were way too eager to play instant stepdad, which was equally off-putting. I didn't want someone scared of my daughter, but I also didn't want someone more interested in the idea of ready-made family than actually getting to know me. So I took a break from dating for a while, focused on work and spending more time with Mia. Which was probably good for me. The whole thing with Landon had made me realize I'd been so focused on trying to make him see what we could have together that I'd lost sight of whether he was actually someone I wanted long-term. Like, yes, we had good chemistry and he was sweet most of the time. But he was also 22, living with a roommate, working a dead-end job, and apparently completely unprepared for adult relationships that require compromise and flexibility. Was that really the kind of partner I wanted? Someone who needed everything to be easy and convenient all the time? Someone who'd run the second things got complicated? Probably not. But it still stung that he'd given up on us so easily. About 8 months later, I was at the grocery store with Mia when I saw Landon in the cereal aisle. He was alone, looking pretty much the same except maybe a little tired. "Hey," he said when he spotted me, kind of awkwardly. "Hi," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral while Mia tugged on my hand asking if we could get the cereal with the toy inside. We made small talk for maybe a minute. How work was going, generic stuff like that. He glanced down at Mia a few times, but didn't really acknowledge her beyond a polite nod. The whole interaction was painfully awkward, but it also made me realize how much I'd moved on. Seeing him didn't bring back the sharp hurt I'd expected. Mostly I just felt nothing. Like he was someone I used to know rather than someone who'd broken my heart. A few weeks later, my friend Jessica texted me a screenshot from Instagram. It was Landon's story, complaining about being exhausted by dating and how girls always want more than I'm willing to give. I screenshot it and sent it to my sister with laughing emojis because the irony was perfect. The guy who'd run from me because I had a daughter couldn't even handle regular dating without feeling overwhelmed by basic relationship expectations. His problem was never really about Mia or my complications. His problem was that he didn't want a relationship at all, with anyone, under any circumstances. He just wanted the fun parts, the sex, the companionship, the ego boost of having someone care about him, without any of the actual work or commitment. Which honestly made me feel vindicated. I'd spent months thinking there was something wrong with me, something about my situation that made me unlovable or too difficult. Turns out Landon was just emotionally unavailable across the board. 2 months after that, Jessica sent me another update. Landon had been posting sad quotes about missing someone but knowing it's better this way, and wishing things could be different. Apparently he was going through some kind of quarter-life crisis, realizing that his pattern of running from anything real was leaving him pretty lonely. But instead of doing the work to figure out why he sabotaged every good thing in his life, he was just wallowing in self-pity on social media. By then, I'd started seeing someone new. Marcus, who was 28, had his own place, and wasn't weird about the fact that I have a kid. He'd already met Mia multiple times, not because I pushed it, but because it came up naturally and he was genuinely interested in this important part of my life. The contrast was incredible. Marcus would suggest family-friendly activities when we made weekend plans. He'd ask about Mia's school and remember the answers. He'd bring her little gifts sometimes. Nothing big, just a book he thought she'd like, or stickers for her collection. Not because he was trying to win me over, but because he understood that caring about me meant caring about the things that mattered to me. And Mia matters more than anything. Landon never got that. He saw my daughter as an obstacle rather than an integral part of who I am. He wanted the version of me that existed separately from my actual life and responsibilities. But that version of me doesn't exist. I'm a mom first, always, and anyone who wants to be with me needs to embrace that reality, not just tolerate it. Marcus got that from day one. Landon never did. Even after 3 months of me trying to show him what we could have if he'd just open his mind to the possibility. So seeing his pattern play out exactly like I'd predicted was incredibly satisfying. It confirmed that letting him go was the right choice, that he really wasn't capable of being the partner I deserved. Meanwhile, I was building something real with someone who saw my whole life as something to embrace rather than something to work around. Marcus talks about our future like it's a given, makes plans months in advance, treats Mia like she's already part of his world. That's the difference between dating a boy and dating a man. Boys want everything to be simple and convenient and all about them. Men understand that real love means embracing someone's complete life, including the parts that require sacrifice and compromise. Landon was a boy pretending to be ready for something he fundamentally wasn't equipped to handle. Marcus is actually ready for partnership, for building something lasting with someone who comes with real responsibilities. His loss became my gain, because his inability to commit freed me up to find someone who actually could. And honestly, I should probably thank him for showing me exactly what I didn't want in a partner early enough to walk away. Now he gets to keep cycling through casual relationships that never go anywhere, posting cryptic quotes about missed opportunities, while never doing the work to actually become someone capable of not missing them. Meanwhile, I get to build a real life with someone who chose all of me from the beginning. Someone who sees Mia as an addition to our relationship, rather than a complication to manage. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, you know? And sometimes that's exactly what you need to make space for something infinitely better.